we're diving into presidential arrests today.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Pretty crazy.
You think practically untouchable.
Right.
But what happens when a president breaks the law?
Hmm.
Are they really above it all?
It's a fascinating question, and
Yeah.
the answer is more nuanced than you might think.
Okay.
Presidents do have a degree of legal immunity, but it's
Yeah.
not a blanket protection.
Okay, so walk me through this.
Sure.
Why do presidents even have immunity in the first place?
Well, imagine the chaos if every single presidential action could be instantly challenged in court.
Oh, wow.
The legal system could be weaponized to bog down the presidency,
Right.
making it impossible to govern effectively.
Yeah.
Immunity is there to prevent frivolous lawsuits and protect the decision-making process.
So it's less about being above the law and more about making sure the president can actually do their job.
Exactly.
Okay.
But this doesn't mean they can act with complete impunity.
Right.
There are checks and balances in place.
That makes sense. Yeah. But now I'm even more curious about these presidential arrests.
Well, you might be surprised to learn that only one president in U.S. history has ever been arrested while in office.
Wait, only one?
Yeah, just one.
Out of all the presidents we've had, only one got nabbed.
Yep.
Who was it?
Ulysses S. Grant.
Ulysses S. Grant.
And the reason for his arrest,
Oh,
speeding.
No way.
Yep.
The Civil War hero General Grant got pulled over for having a lead foot.
Uh-huh.
Now that's a story I need to hear.
It does sound a bit outlandish, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Especially considering presidential immunity. But the story goes that Grant was quite fond of fast horses
Oh, wow.
and had a habit of racing his carriage through the streets of Washington, D.C.
I can just imagine the scene.
Yeah.
Horses galloping, carriage rattling, people diving out of the way.
Uh-huh.
What did people think about this presidential joyride?
Apparently it caused quite a stir among D.C. residents,
I bet.
particularly mothers worried about their children's safety with the president tearing through the streets.
So are we talking about a motorcade situation, but with horses?
Pretty much.
No traffic control, no sirens, just a president putting the pedal to the metal.
Pretty much. And this eventually led to a confrontation with the law. According to an account by former D.C. police officer William West Grant and his entourage were stopped and ordered to the station to post collateral before facing a judge.
Hold on.
Yeah,
A sitting president had to go to the police station.
that's what the story says.
Did he actually go?
The story claims that Grant paid the $20 collateral,
Wow.
which was a significant sum back then, but refused to see the judge.
Really?
Essentially, he paid the fine and walked away.
That's incredible.
It is.
But a story this big, wouldn't it be all over the newspapers?
You would think so.
Especially with Grant running for re-election at the time?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But that's where the story gets a little fuzzy.
Okay.
There are no contemporary news reports of the incident. It only surfaced decades later when William West recounted it in 1908.
So could this be a tall tale? A good story that got embellished over time.
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
The lack of contemporary evidence does raise questions about its authenticity.
Right.
Yeah.
But even if the arrest story is debated, does the lack of reporting tell us something in itself? I mean, wouldn't a story about a president being hauled in true or not be political dynamite?
You're absolutely right. The silence surrounding the alleged incident, especially during a heated election year, is curious, to say the least. It makes you wonder about the power dynamics at play and the control over information even back then.
Yeah, for sure. It really highlights how historical narratives can be shaped and influenced by various factors. But let's get back to Grant. If he really was a speed demon, shouldn't there be other accounts of his reckless driving?
Interestingly, there is documented evidence of Grant's disregard for traffic regulations, even before his presidency. In 1866, while serving as Lieutenant General of the U.S. Army, he was stopped for fast driving in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so this wasn't just a one-time thing. He had a reputation.
It seems so. In this particular incident, Grant was reportedly reprimanded for speeding on 14th Street. He apparently brushed off the officers, even offering to pay a fine on the spot before driving off.
Wow, so even back then, people weren't thrilled about a high-ranking official flouting the law. It sounds like Grant had a bit of a lead foot and wasn't too concerned about the rules of the road.
That's right. And this incident sparked public criticism, with some people viewing it as unbecoming of someone in his position. It raises questions about whether his disregard for traffic laws was a reflection of a larger disregard for rules and regulations in general.
That's a really interesting point. It makes you wonder if this tendency to push boundaries extended to other areas of his life and presidency.
Exactly. This seemingly minor detail about Grant's driving habits opens up a window into his personality and decision-making style. It challenges the perception of him as a rigid by-the-book figure.
It also reminds us that historical figures, even those revered as heroes, are complex individuals with flaws and contradictions. We shouldn't shy away from exploring those complexities, as they often reveal a more complete and nuanced understanding of the past.
I couldn't agree more. And in Grant's case, these speeding incidents, whether factual or embellished, offer a fascinating glimpse into his character. They also highlight the enduring tension between power and accountability, a theme that resonates throughout history.
Absolutely. And this tension is especially relevant when it comes to the presidency. The idea that the leader of a nation with all its power and responsibilities could be subject to the same laws as everyday citizens is a cornerstone of democratic principles.
Precisely. The rule of law, the principle that no one is above the law, is essential for a functioning democracy.
But the fact that only one president has been arrested while in office raises questions about how this principle applies in practice, especially when it comes to the highest office in the land. What do you think?
It's a complex issue. On the one hand, the president holds immense power and needs a certain level of protection to carry out their duties effectively. On the other hand, holding the office of president shouldn't exempt someone from being held accountable for their actions, especially if those actions violate the law.
Right. So how do we reconcile these seemingly conflicting ideas? Where do we draw the line?
That's a question that legal scholars and historians continue to grapple with. Presidential immunity is a concept that has evolved over time and is still subject to debate and interpretation.
It seems like there's a delicate balance to strike. But going back to Grant, his speeding incidents, regardless of their absolute truth, add another layer to this whole discussion. It makes you wonder if there are other instances throughout history, maybe not as dramatic as an arrest, where leaders have pushed those boundaries.
Absolutely. History is full of examples of powerful figures who've tested the limits of their authority, sometimes with significant consequences. Just think of the Roman emperors,
Oh, yeah.
the absolute monarchs of Europe, or even some modern-day leaders who've stretched the boundaries of their power.
It's a reminder that power can be intoxicating, and those who wield it aren't always immune to its temptations. But it also speaks to the importance of having robust systems of accountability in place.
Precisely. Whether it's a written constitution, an independent judiciary, a free press, or a vigilant citizenry, these checks and balances are crucial for preventing abuses of power and ensuring that even those at the highest levels are held responsible for their actions.
And it seems like stories like Grant's, even if they're apocryphal, can serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the importance of those checks and balances.
I agree. These stories, whether entirely accurate or not, spark important conversations about power accountability and the rule of law. They force us to examine our assumptions about historical figures and the complexities of leadership.
Well, I think we've uncovered a treasure trove of insights today, all stemming from a seemingly simple question.
Yeah.
Has a U.S. president ever been arrested?
Indeed. We've delved into the nuances of presidential immunity, explored the historical context of Grant's alleged arrest, and even touched upon the broader theme of power and accountability throughout history.
It just goes to show that sometimes the most unexpected stories can lead to the most thought-provoking discussions.
That's the beauty of history. It's a constant process of discovery, interpretation, and reevaluation. And as we've seen today, even a story about a speeding president can offer valuable insights into the nature of leadership, the complexities of the past, and the enduring principles that shape our world.
So, to our listeners, I say this: don't be afraid to dig deeper, question assumptions, and explore the hidden corners of history. You never know what fascinating discoveries await.
And then who knows, maybe you'll stumble upon the next great historical debate, sparked by a seemingly insignificant detail that changes the way we understand the past.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those historical wheels turning.